Hey
Hey
geeks!
geeks! So we're here today. I know we haven't done as many videos, and I said this in our last video. It's because we've also been getting back into Magic,
hmm
and that's very time consuming sometimes.
Yeah. Speaking of which, a new block has been dropped. It's the first of a two-set block, and it's Battle for Zendikar. And this is actually what this video is actually going to be about. We're actually going to be talking about the main mechanics that they introduced with this block, and discussing kind of where we see it going, how they work, and what we think are the cons of this, so to speak.
Yeah,
Because we see a lot of flaws.
yeah. I'm gonna say this now. I think a lot of this entire block made it seem they wanted the games to last longer with mechanics that were much more high cost. And the problem with that is that there's a lot of common and uncommon cards and some rare that are just way faster. You're gonna
hmm
just get overridden real easily before you get to utilize these high cost mechanics.
Yeah, they're trying to change the pace
Yeah,
and slow the game down so that we go more late game, big plays.
yeah,
Um,
which I'd be fine with, but
I don't
you
mind
got to
long
try
games
and get
either.
rid of all of this low little.
Yeah.
I mean, because somebody's always going to try and figure out the faster way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, even if you probably did try and make it more big game,
I mean,
it's
one of
going to
the one
happen.
of the biggest things with a lot of our casual decks that we play with here at the house is we're constantly looking for ways to mana ramp and speed up our decks
Yep.
because it's the easiest way to win and it's the quickest way to win.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get started with the first of the mechanics that they introduced, and it is called Awaken. This is on some of the. Is it mostly sorceries?
I believe it's all sorceries for the most part.
Yeah.
There might be an no. There's I think maybe a few instances at least with white,
It seems like
mainly
this
sorceries.
mechanic is showing up majority on certain sorcery cards, and essentially it gives you, think of a super expensive kicker, okay? Um, like how kickers were kind of an extra benefit if you paid extra.
Yep.
Kind of like that, only it's much more expensive high maintenance cousin.
Yeah.
Um, so for example, if you take the card Ruinous Path, it is a one colorless, two black, and it's destroy target creature or planeswalker, which in itself is a very powerful card.
Yes.
Um,
It's actually going for a decent amount. It's
Yeah,
very
it's
popular right
one of
now.
the rares, but it also has a thing called Awaken 4, and the cost is 5 colorless, 2 black, and what it is you get to cast that spell and put 4 +1/+1 counters on one of your lands, turning it into an elemental creature with haste where it's still a land.
Yep.
Now, honestly, this is not a card I'm going to be casting most likely
For 7.
for 7. This
Yeah.
is most likely something I'm going to cast for 3 and leave myself some open mana to cast something else.
Yeah.
This is definitely more late game. There's very few of the Awaken cards that I actually felt were kind of worth it, because almost all of them are like 5 mana and above.
Yeah, all of the ones that I've seen have been 5 mana and above. And now that I'm thinking about it, there are I know because I'm running with them in a weird deck I haven't shown you yet. That has Awaken, and it's all standard, but it has Awaken, and there is an instant white card. I believe it prevents all of my opponent's combat damage from happening.
Okay.
But I just realized what the trade off is. It's still a 5 cost for Awakening, just like any other white 5 cost Awaken that I have. However, you only get a creature with 2 +1/+1 counters instead of like 4 with a lot of the others that are a 5 cost are 4 counters on
So
your
it's a
land.
turbo fog and you get a 2/2 out of it.
Yeah, it's a turbo fog and you still get to do damage.
Hmm.
But I mean, the card by itself is wonderful. because it's a 3
Right.
cost. You do no damage. I still do damage to you. But the thing is I'm saying the awakening cost is still ridiculous. Like I don't want to pay that extra 2 mana at
Yeah,
that
not when you
point.
can like drop another creature
Yeah,
or play another spell. Like, isn't Smite the Monstrous like 3?
I think it's 3. Or even
Yeah.
if I only had 5 mana open, I would probably be playing. There's some Ondu Rising. It's a give your creatures lifelink, all creatures lifelink for 2,
Yeah,
and
no,
then I
that's
could
definitely better.
go through and then still do damage and prevent damage with the other.
I feel like
Just awakening, awakening is just not useful unless you're going way late game, and I don't
or
see too many
huge
going.
mana ramp, and there
Yeah,
isn't a
huge.
lot of mana ramp
Yeah,
in this particular set so far.
yeah.
We are waiting for
There's some decent ones with
the next one.
green, but I mean green and red have always been mana ramp because it's Gruul
Yeah,
colors. So
green
I mean,
black is
yeah,
Golgari, so that
yeah,
might work. But um, yeah, the definitely more late game that particular mechanic. But like I said, I would be just costing him for their normal thing, getting the instant satisfaction
yeah.
out of it. Um,
So
so go ahead.
the next mechanic we want to kind of talk about is rally, and this one I've been trying to experiment with more while combining it with awaken. Um, and this has to do. They brought back ally mechanic. I think this ally mechanic works better than the older ally mechanic kind of did, but there's still the problem with it being too late game.
Hmm.
So really, what it is so rally will be on a whole bunch of different ally cards, and whenever that card or any other ally comes into the battlefield, it does some sort of effect. Um, One card like that is Hero of Goma Fata, and whenever it comes into play, or another ally does, creatures you control become indestructible until end of turn. Awesome effect,
It's a
really
four
is.
three, which is nice.
Yes, it's a four
Decent
three,
body.
but it's a 5 cost. That is the big problem. It's a 5 cost, and I'm trying to see how that would be any sort of reasonable.
I mean, if it's your turn 5 drop and you've got like 4 other creatures out there, it's kind of nice. They can't be destroyed,
Yeah,
whatnot. But
the other ally part is not going to trigger very well. So I mean, you're only going to get really one use to out of it for me.
one, maybe 2 or 3, but not
Yeah.
not enough to really make it as Bamfy as possible. And granted, some of the lower cost allies do also have rally, but those abilities aren't nearly as effective. Um, so you're gonna lose a lot of functionality with that, I
There's I
think.
think 1 3 cost that I really like, and it gives vigilance, which is
Yeah.
kind of nice. So I mean, that can come
That's
into
useful,
play.
especially early game too.
Yeah.
Um,
The only high cost ally card that I saw that I like was the Merfolk ally,
mhm.
blue white, and whenever it or another ally or it comes into play, it what it does is it has a whole weird trigger. Like when you do instants and sorceries, lands get you can choose any land you want that you own and put 3 counters on it.
Mm,
That's
that's not
the
bad.
only ally one that I saw that I kind of liked.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But
Um, yeah, I don't. I like the fact that they brought allies back. I feel like that's definitely awesome, and it totally is a great homage to the original Zendikar block
yeah,
back in the day, which was actually a really good set.
no, it was. I love that set.
Um, but I feel like we said at the very beginning of the video, it's definitely designed, I think, more in a slower pace, late game or later game when you're actually going to have like 7 lands out. Um, all right, so
Next one that just proves the point of late game.
is a mechanic called Converge. Now, we have some theories about this particular mechanic, but essentially, Converge is something that rewards you or affects a card based on how many colors of mana you used to spend it, or how many colors of mana you spent to use it.
Yeah,
Sorry, words. Um,
they're hard. I know.
they really are sometimes.
English.
English.
Just ask Eric.
um, so for an example, there is a 3-cost red card called Radiant Flames. It's 2 colorless and 1 red, and it's got Converge. So it says Radiant Flames deals X damage to target creature, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast Radiant Flames. Now, at minimum, it's going to be 1 damage, which is absolutely ridiculous for a 3-cost.
Yeah. Horrible.
Even 2 damage for a 3-cost is pretty.
Yeah, there's better.
Well,
There's
it's
better
to
flame
each.
spells.
It's to each creature.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
but you know,
Still.
I mean, that could clear you of weenies
Yeah.
easily.
But yet again, we're seeing a lot of late game stuff.
Exactly.
So most stuff is not weenie cards.
So most you're gonna get out of this is 3 damage to each creature. And that's if you're running 3 colors.
Yep.
So shards or cons.
Yep.
And there's actually ones that are 5 cost.
A lot of the other ones I saw were 5 costs.
4 to 5 cost, yeah. And
want
so
like
they
4 or 5.
our thing is, and I expect to see more of this in the next set in the block, is that it looks like they're trying to get people to actually play Rainbow, which, for those of you who don't know what Rainbow means, it means all 5 colors of mana, which is hard to pull off sometimes because you have to have a lot of synergy.
You have to have a lot of synergy, and usually you have to have a lot of dual lands.
To even out your mana
to do.
To even out your mana curve. The crappy thing is, majority of the Converge cards aren't that great.
Nope.
You don't get, something that, you don't get the reward.
For how much effort you got to put into
for how much you got to build around it. And I feel like it could have been a lot better of a system.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to do this one. So yeah, Converge. I feel like they're trying to push us into Rainbow, or try and coax people into doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a Rainbow deck that I was looking at the Converge cards to see if I want to utilize them. I actually have a Rainbow deck and I don't want to use them.
Yeah.
Because they're not that great.
No, they aren't.
Which is really sad. I was actually quite let down by that. Yeah. So the next mechanic is actually one they've had in the past. They actually had it in the original Zendikar block, did they not?
Yeah, they did, and it was an awesome mechanic then.
Now, not so much. They brought back Landfall, which, for those who don't know, it's a mechanic. You play a card, and whenever you drop a land, it triggers some special effect. The problem is, majority of the excellent Landfall cards are late game.
Yeah. Usually 5 to 7 costs, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that point, how often are you really going to be putting down land? So it's not really going to trigger that often. There are a couple exceptions. There's one, I think, that's 2 or 3 cost that's Landfall, and it was actually a decent effect. I think it was a white card.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think it is.
But as an example of kind of a waste of a Landfall trigger is, let's take Oran Reef Hydra. It's a 6 cost, 5/5. So you're already probably, worst case scenario, well, unless you get mana screwed. But
yeah,
if you're getting all your mana drops, worst case scenario is you drop it on turn 6. It's a 5/5 with trample, and it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Oran Reef Hydra. If that land is a forest, put 2 counters on it instead. Now, granted, there is a lot of mana ramp with green.
Yeah, so it could possibly be much better.
Or much sooner than turn 6.
Yeah, you could be dropping, tap creatures that give mana. There's, I think, a few that can give 2 mana.
Yeah. I mean,
as long as you spend them on creatures, so
conceivably it is possible to get it out before turn 6.
Yeah.
But that's if you have just the right setup. I mean, if you, have any kind of bump in that road, the landfall trigger is not going to be as effective unless you're
And
going late
the high
game.
landfall late game isn't just in green. It's you
Oh
see
yeah,
it in a
almost
lot of the
almost every one of them.
yeah, all the other colors that have landfall. It's late game cards yet again.
Yeah, which is not necessarily a bad thing if the speed cards weren't out there.
Yeah, yeah. If the games were going as late game as things are being shown, it wouldn't be as bad.
Hmm.
I mean, it just the only other thing I can think of is in the next block they're going to be doing something because we don't have it right now. We don't have any flicker or what was the one in Avacyn? You remember you used to use it.
Cloud shift?
Yeah, Cloud Shift. Thank you. People were using it with Thrag Tusks or like the Flash Angel that allowed you to do the same thing,
Oh yeah.
Restoration
Hmm.
Angel or whatever. Um, yeah, we
Hmm.
don't have any of that right now to where you could do that with an ally creature to ally triggers or do it for landfall to so you could do it to a land and then bring the land back in and trigger landfall.
That
I
that
mean,
would be a way to do it.
it would be, but we're not seeing any of those cards right now.
And
So
also keep in mind, we are discussing this thinking of Zendikar, the block itself. We're not talking about cons or the origin set. You know, we're not
well, even
talking
if
about
we
anything from
did,
there. Well, yeah, there isn't much to pull
I
from in there, but I mean, there are possible things that could potentially do it. But we're thinking about it just as the Zendikar block, what they've offered us with this. The next
I'm
bit,
taking this.
huh?
I'm doing this one.
Yeah, the next bit is actually two mechanics,
Yeah,
but they coincide.
yeah. So this one is ingest. It's pretty much if anybody played Zendikar before, they had Annihilator, which was it had different levels like Annihilator 4. I think there was a few level 3s, 5, 6, and 10. And it was a really broken yet fun mechanic, to be honest.
Hmm.
Um,
I loved playing with that.
Ingest, not so much. It sounds awesome to begin with, but
So,
it kind of doesn't work as well as I would hope. And what it allows you to do is whenever your creature deals combat damage to a player, they have to exile the top card of their library. However, every card that has ingest so far, I don't know what might happen in the next block, is only ingest level 1. So every time you hit, no matter what, it's only going to ingest one card. Never two, three, whatever. And I mean, there's some 4 and 5 cost cards that have ingest. And honestly, if I'm playing a 4 or 5 cost card that has ingest, it better have something more than ingest and flying. Or, I mean, hell, there's a 2-drop that's ingest with death touch. At least that has some more utility. You,
yeah.
you get a free kill out of it, or they're just going to keep on letting it go through because they don't want to kill whatever
Hmm.
can block it. So I mean, all you're doing is exiling and getting rid of. So it's a slight control, but it's not very well utilized. And but this mechanic's supposed to play into this next one. That's pretty much all ingest is really. Um, but this plays into called processors. There's a lot of creatures that are called Eldrazi processors, and when you cast them, you can, as an additional kind of like cost, you can, I think it's anywhere from 1 to I think I've seen some with 4. You can have an opponent return so many cards from their exile back into their graveyard, and it'll do some sort of
You,
mechanic,
yeah,
like
you
a
get a perk.
bonus. Yeah, so there's one called Blight Herder, and it's a 5 cost, 4/5, which isn't too bad. I mean, for a
Decent
5
body.
cost, yeah. And when it comes into play, you can have your opponent return 2 exiled cards to their graveyard, and if you do, you get to put 3 1/1 Eldrazi Scion creatures onto the battlefield, and um, they like most other Eldrazi Scions in here, which is kind of another mechanic. I don't really count it as a
I don't
mechanic.
either, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, give you mana. But there's other ones that do certain things where I know we've seen a few where it returns creature cards to hands,
Hmm.
which is pretty nice. More control. I'm really coming at a loss for other ones. A lot of them end up being either control or they drop spawn
And the
tokens.
sad thing is they're pretty forgettable.
Yeah,
Um, the thing with, and Loki and I are in agreement about this, as far as I know. They should have done something similar with Ingest as they did with Annihilator.
yes, they
Maybe
should.
not as high up as
Yeah,
Annihilator went, but something more effective. Because at this point, to make your processors effective, or really worth running ingest and process, um, you're gonna have to rely on other cards that exile your opponent's stuff.
yeah,
You
a
know,
lot.
and as of yet in this block, there isn't enough stuff to do that.
Yeah, you'd have to be running a lot of red, pretty much,
Yeah,
to where when it dies, it exiles, kind of burn
yeah,
spells. That's about the only thing I can think of.
yeah, and it's just there isn't really enough to make it, you know, and especially because some of the ingest ones are semi high cost, so it's like, what's the
Yeah, they're
point?
semi-high cost or they're low-cost, weak creatures. So they're either going to get blocked and taken care of right away, even if it kills theirs,
Mm-hmm.
because they would rather, lose a chump blocker essentially, slow the game down a little bit. I guess maybe that's their way of slowing it down. You try playing stuff that makes them block your little guys that are going to try and control you, and therefore you're going to have to go longer.
I don't know, maybe. I feel like the processors had a lot of potential for kind of fun mechanic to play with, but I think the ingest kind of let it down.
Yeah.
I
And
feel like they
honestly, that's
didn't
kind
go
of
as
like everything so far. It has a really good
hmm
chance to shine through, other than honestly Converge.
so far,
Yeah, so far.
unless they knock us out of the park in in the thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's processors have a huge potential, but the ingest mechanic, which is supposed to pair up with it, just completely lets it fall flat.
Yeah. I
So,
would definitely agree with that.
all right. So the next thing we got is actually kind of a return of something from the original Zendikar block, and this is Eldrazi Scions, which are typically a token. Um, and essentially, you sack it to get colorless mana.
Yep.
Now
One colorless.
yeah, the difference is that in the original Zendikar block, they were Eldrazi spawns, and they were a 0/1. So there wasn't really much you could do with them other than possibly chump block if you had to, or just straight sack them.
Yep.
They were just sack farted. Now, Eldrazi Scions, which is the new updated version, they're actually 1/1s. So technically, you could kind of have like an Eldrazi weenie,
Yeah.
thing. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the cards that spawn these Scions are typically like 4 costs and above, typically.
Typically, yeah.
But um, they're a little bit more of a threat because if you wanted to, you could legitimately just start attacking people with the Scion tokens.
Oh yeah, I did it.
You know.
In the pre-release.
Oh yeah.
I was dropping spawning tokens as much as I could to
Oh, yeah.
just try and hit or chump block and gain mana.
Yeah, chump block, even trade damage with
Yeah.
cheap weenies. So I mean, there's almost a little more upside to the Scions as
Yeah.
compared to the spawns.
There's still an Iceman. I love the Scions. It's just the cards that bring them out in a decent wave.
Mm-hmm.
Too high cost.
Yeah. The one thing I do like is that one enchantment that spawns them at the end on your upkeep.
Yeah,
that one's good,
nice
and it's
one.
only what, like a 4 cost, I think.
I think it's a 4.
It's
kind of it's the more expensive version of the original Zendikar, where it was Awakening Zone, which was only a 2 cost.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Yeah, and I think that one gave you 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, now this time it's 4 for 1, I believe.
Yeah, so Scions, I give it a thumbs up on that one.
Yeah,
I think that one's good.
The last mechanic really in this block that, as of right now at least, I don't see where it's going.
And I'll tell you right now, Loki does not like this.
I don't. I have noticed though, looking through some of the older blocks that are still part of standard, it can kind of do some good sometimes. Mainly with Ugin lands. Yeah, I know. I tried to get it.
I know.
So this this one, before we get sidetracked, it's called Devoid, and what it is this card has no color. That's all Devoid is. So we see it on pretty much every Eldrazi card
Just
in
about, yeah.
here. I haven't
That's
seen it
right.
on anything else actually, other than Eldrazi's. It
There
could.
is an instant.
There is.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a like a counter spell.
I think it also has a Eldrazi.
I don't think so.
Oh,
I know I ran it during pre-release.
okay. I
It's
know
like
there
a two
has
or
been
three
some
cost
that are
blue.
like a sorcery
I forget what
Eldrazi.
it's called. Oh my god.
There's a red one that I think has Eldrazi as a
That
subtype.
one, yeah, that one might, but this one is just an instant counter spell, pretty much.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
all
I
right.
used it. It was beautiful,
Okay.
but I think it was so it wasn't a counter blue spell or whatever
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
And
Like
see,
that could be fun.
that's the only thing I see these cards being good for is they get protection from color kill spells.
Keeping in mind, these devoid cards do require a specific color mana
Yes,
to actually cast them.
that's what annoys me.
Mhm.
So you're making these cards colorless, but they cost. I mean, they have them in all colors. They have black, red, blue, everything, and they
Green.
have them. Yeah, they also
I
have
don't
them
remember seeing
mixed.
any white ones though. I don't think there's any white.
Now
There's
that you
like
mention it, I haven't either.
yeah, there's
Okay, so
four.
other
Got the
than
four
white,
colors.
I did not realize
White.
that. I don't play white a lot, so I don't really think
Neither
of
do
it.
I.
So, but yeah, and then they have a ton of different like blue green, and then I know blue black, Fathom Feeder, one of my favorites that is because it was the one that could ingest Death Touch one
Oh
two
yeah.
or something.
hmm
So that one I really liked. Oh, and you can use it to I think to draw cards. But yeah, a lot of them like Barrage Tyrant. It's a 5 cost 5/3 devoid, and it has like a ability where you pay 3, sack a colorless creature, and it does damage equal to sacrifice creature's power to target creature player.
So you can pay
Awesome
3 to
ability.
fling.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of cool, but I mean the devoid does nothing for it other than it keeps them safe from kill spells that say kill multicolor
Pretty
or kill a
much,
red.
it's pay 3 to fling another devoid creature.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. It's just it's all supposed to help interact with other colorless creatures. So, I mean,
It is pretty quick.
yeah, there's not I haven't seen
But
enough good mechanics that work with the colorless.
yeah, but I think we need to. This is something that I'm hoping the next set in the block actually improves upon. And if they do, hey, we'll, bite the bullet and review that as well.
Oh yeah.
Overall, I think the best thing that came out of this isn't technically a mechanic, and I would say the best thing that came out of it was the Eldrazi Scions.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not even going to say all mechanic wise this entire thing for me was really underwhelming. And I was very excited going into this because I loved Zendikar, and I
Oh,
was
so did
so
I.
glad we're going back.
At this point,
They
the thing
honestly
we are
pulled up
most
RTR again.
yeah
They pulled up Return to Ravnica crap fest
yeah
for me.
I think the thing we were most excited about, honestly, full art lands.
Yeah, the
That's it.
Zendikar
That's it.
expeditions and the full art lands. Those were
Yeah.
what, and I still have not seen an
And
expedition.
believe me, I love me some full art lands.
Oh, yeah.
I hoarded all of the original Zendikar full art lands. I spent the money to get like entire play sets, just because I love them so much. And this was I was let down because I was super excited because I loved playing with the Eldrazi's.
Yep.
You
It wasn't
know,
the
dropping
same.
a turn 2 Emrakul was like the most amazing moment for me. And I still can't believe it actually happened and it pulled off just like that.
Yeah.
Nothing like making a guy scoop like that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm done. You win.
Done. Here you go. And this, like you said, is pretty underwhelming. What do
Yeah.
you think is the worst offender of these?
So okay, I'm not even gonna count Devoid because that's not even fair. Because to me that's not
And
even
we're
a
not going to count
mechanic.
the Scions.
Or the Scions. I won't count those two. Those aren't really.
What you would consider a mechanic?
I would say. For me, it's probably a tie between Ingest and Convergence. Really.
Converge.
Yeah.
I would say ingest for me
Okay.
because I feel like they could have done it as like the little brother of Annihilator.
Yeah, they just kind of fell flat.
You know, like they don't necessarily have to go up to like Annihilator 10 or Annihilator, 6. But I mean, for your bigger, beefy,
At least 3 or
ingest
4
creatures,
maybe.
yeah, like top tier, you could do ingest 4.
Yeah.
That would make it worth it. More benefit, a bigger impact, and I just don't feel like it's as impactful as they hoped it would be.
Yeah.
Because there's so much potential with the processors, but to ingest,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, so that's our review of the Battle for Zendikar new mechanics, or returning mechanics in some instances. We will try out the next set in this block, of course, when it comes out. So I'll be eager to see if they improve upon these mechanics, and I swear I hope so. I so hope so. Because right now it's completely underwhelming, and like you said, it's kind of like a RTR.
Yeah, it's like
Which
Return
granted,
to
I
Ravnica.
had an okay time with RTR because I wasn't playing during the original Ravnica block. But
That's probably
I
what it did
know
for me.
I know Loki was, and that was like one of his favorite blocks of all time, and RTR just kind of like
To give
gutted
them
him.
credit, they did have to get rid of a lot of their card people because they made some broken ass shit in Ravnica.
True. And it's like I almost feel like they're scared to go that far.
Yeah, actually, kind of like I guess you could say. Okay, now this makes sense. Zendikar was a little bit of a broken feeling, and now it's like they're making up for it.
Yeah, but the thing is,
I
in
know
the
the same
end,
artist.
honestly, people are only buying this shit for the full out ends at this point.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of people.
Very few cards are that sought after.
Yeah, local around here, actually, I'm noticing less and less standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than Gideon.
Yeah.
Gideon's my boy. Anyway, so that's our take on it. I hope you enjoyed this video, this review. I know it went a little long, but gotta explain it.
Yeah.
So like and subscribe for your chance to win a geeky good box subscription box thing of your very own. Because we're giving those away. We'll be giving one away as soon as we hit 100 subscribers. So click that button. Click it right now. And I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Anything else to say?
I would say just look forward to some more Magic videos. I have some ideas that I would like to do with that. Maybe some, even just simple opening up different packs, even.
Oh,
Just to
pack
kind of,
openings, yeah.
Maybe
For
kind
sure.
of do stuff like that, and a few other things. But yeah, otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed the video.
Later, geeks.